Hello and welcome. In today's video we're going to be talking about Tenet and specifically the Christian themes that I've picked up on in my viewings of the movie. So stick around and right after this we'll jump right in. Welcome once again, my name's Austin and this channel is all about digging deeper and going further to better understand faith and film and everything that's in between. If that's exciting to you, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any new content. Now let's jump in and start talking about Tenet. Now, if you've been following my channel for some time, you know I posted an initial kind of thoughts review on Tenet when it first released back in August. Since then, I've now picked up the movie for my own personal collection and have watched it a couple more times. I did definitely check it out with subtitles, which helped with a lot of things. And in those repeat viewings, I've really picked up on some really neat stuff. Outside of just the filmmaking masterfulness of the movie, I've also picked up on some of its themes and how I would apply those to the Christian life. If you want to know more of my thoughts on the movie from a review and thoughts perspective, I will link to that video in the description below and at the end of this one. Now, enough background information. Let's jump in and talk about the three themes that I picked up on in the movie. First, let's start off with the definition of the word tenet. The short definition to this would be that tenet is a principle or a belief. Now, from very early on throughout, we find out that tenet is essentially the assignment or the mission that the protagonist is sent on. And though he's not given a lot of information, and even as the film moves on, he's not given too much more, based on that information he has, he must believe in what he's doing in order to accomplish that goal. Now, as Christians, we still aren't given all the answers. There's a ton of opportunities to learn from the Bible, from other Christians and their experiences, but there's a lot of information that we're just not given. And based off of that information we have, like the protagonist in Tenet, we need to align ourselves with that principle or belief and take the information we are given to complete the goal that is laid before us. Scripture throughout is filled with stories of people who are given a certain amount of information from the Lord or from Jesus, from someone that is over them in a spiritual sense. They're given a certain amount of information and it may not give them all the answers right then, but they take that and apply it to their life, their principle, their belief, and they live it out to achieve the goal. And though we may not be in Bible times anymore, there are plenty of examples of this information that we can take from the scriptures and apply to our own lives and how we live it out. Now, speaking of working with the information that we have, let's move on to the second theme I picked up on and how it relates to the concept of inversion. Inversion is a concept within the movie of Tenet, and essentially inverting a person or an object reverses its progression through time. Now, the interesting thing with inversion versus time travel is time travel essentially kind of, for the most part, reverses everything, where in this case, a singular object or person can be inverted and flow through time in a reverse way while the world is still moving in a forward motion. So that's very much like the bare bones, what you'd kind of need to know off the top of your head of how inversion works within the film. Now, there are multiple moments in the movie where a team of people moves through a sequence of events in a forward motion while another team is inverted and moves through those events in reverse. The technical term for this within the movie is a temporal pincer movement. Again, essentially within the movie, the people that utilize this temporal pincer movement take advantage of a situation and the fact that they have people moving forwards through it and backwards through it so that the people moving forwards can then debrief with the people who moved in reverse through it to know play by play, beat by beat, what happens in that sequence of events, and they can take that information and reapply it to the beginning and better understand the situation going forwards. Now, the Christian and kind of life application that I picked up from this is take advantage of the people in your life who have gone through similar situations to what you may be experiencing. In a way, you can almost apply a temporal pincer movement, so to speak, to your own life. For example, you're going through a difficult situation that you have a close friend who has gone through this in years past. In a way, you're going forwards through this, but the person who you may be able to get help with, they can look backwards in almost an inverted sense of how that encounter impacted them, how it change them as a person throughout their life events, that kind of thing. So they kind of have an inverted way of looking at it. They can take what God taught them through that encounter or event or series of events that took place for a period of time in their life, look back on it and say, hey, I recognize that you're going through this similar kind of event that I went through, whether it's a trial, anything like that. Here's kind of what helped me along the way. Here's where I relied on God. Here's where I jumped into scripture, and this is what I kind of learned from it. So in a way, you're using a temporal pincer movement to look not only forwards in what you're experiencing, but they can look back so that you can be better prepared for what you may be experiencing in your own life. Now, somewhat similarly, when I move on to my third point here of what I picked up on, I kind of want to touch on the idea from the film of what's happened. And essentially what that means from the movie is there is a point in the film where the protagonist, he wants to take what he just experienced, go through it backwards, and try to change something at a certain point to help it in his benefit for his gain. And he quickly learns in that sequence that that's a mistake, and that's just not the way things are going to work out. Of what's happened. In a way, it's kind of set in stone, so don't try to change it, because potentially in trying to change it, you're ensuring that what has happened has happened. Those events will continue to take place. I know this may not be the best explanation of it, but I'm doing the best I can with some very complex ideas. Now, I talked about taking advantage of the people who have gone through similar situations that you have, and almost a temporal pincer movement to take advantage of those experiences they've had to learn for your own life. Now, know that there are certain times where taking that information back, you can learn something so that you will learn to do things and kind of navigate that trial in a different way. But remember that what's happened. By carrying things out the way that they are supposed to, that contributes to the grand plan of it all. Just look back on the life of Jesus. As he was kind of finishing up his 3-year ministry, he knew he was coming to the point of crucifixion. He knew what was going to happen. He could have very easily, in his authoritative position, said, you know what? I could easily just make a couple different minor decisions and not get arrested and go through the whole process of crucifixion. But he recognizes that it is his responsibility to carry things out the way that God has planned. And so he is willing to go through that trial for the benefit and the gain of what God has planned. And obviously, as we know, he goes through everything with the crucifixion and is resurrected and opens up the gates of heaven, potentially for all who are willing to walk that path. None of that would have happened should Jesus have chosen, you know what, I don't know if I want to get crucified. I kind of like the way things are going with my ministry and I want to carry that on. But instead, he chose to follow the path that was laid before him and recognize that what's happened because he has a very overarching look down at the events that are taking place throughout history. We may look back on things in our life and think, you know what, I wish I did that differently because I may have been in a little bit of a better place now had I done that differently. I personally do that fairly regularly. Looking back on mistakes I may have made during my high school years, early college years, I wish I did this differently because I think I would have been a little bit of a better spot here, or I wouldn't have had to go through that hard time. But what's happened. I can't change the past. I need to recognize that, I went through this trial, but because of it, I am now where I am today. I'm stronger, better for it. I'm stronger in my faith and my ability, my skill, all those things. Those what may feel like negative trials and elements of your life may be something you look back on and wish you did differently, but if you did those things differently, you wouldn't be who you are today, and you wouldn't be the testimony of who you are today. Let's take a look at Seder, for example. Seder is the name of the villain of the movie. And when he discovers that he has a terminal illness and he is destined to die, he chooses that he is going to take the rest of the world with him. Sound familiar? Look at what we know about Satan from the Bible. He is fighting a losing battle, and he is trying to take as many of us with him as we can. But if we can take advantage of the fact that what has happened, God has a grand plan, and it is our responsibility to come alongside of each other, take advantage of the experiences we have gone through, and utilize that temporal pincer movement to help apply those lessons and things that we learned and grew through with other people so that they can apply them to their lives as they're moving forward through similar events. And if we can do that, and just like we talked about the definition of Tenet being a belief or a principle, if we can apply the principle of Christianity at its very core to our lives, all of this coming together will help us to lead a successful, fulfilling, and positive life. If we take what we are given through the scriptures, communion, and fellowship with other Christians, what God speaks to us directly through prayer, we can take that belief and really hone in on it, make it a part of who we are. That is what's going to make the difference. So those are the three main themes that I picked up on that I feel like as a Christian I can apply to my life. If there's anything else that you feel like you picked up on that would be a great Christian theme, it could be something just from a simple quote, a scene, or the movie as a whole that you feel like would be great to share with other people, share it down in the comments below. I spent a good bit of time really pondering the very complex elements of this movie, breaking it down as best I could. I love this movie. I feel like there's going to be things for so many years to come that I'll pick up on, even down the road. So thank you for being part of it in this video. I look forward to seeing what you've picked up on in the comments, what you love about this movie. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one.